Apex Legend building tutorial is only useful for grasping the basics of the aim. The best way to learn how to be the god of aiming is to practice these 10 tips. Find the best sensitivity for you. Due to speed involved, it requires an unconscious muscle memory that must be built up over hours of practice. You will subconsciously and automatically be able to convert the on-screen distance to your target into a movement of an analog. This is why changing your sensitivity is so damaging. What you need to do is find the best sensitivity level for you, which you find the game to be fluent and where you can move freely. You can see the enemy and you can aim at the enemy comfortably. Now you've got the right sensitivity for you. Keep it at that and start practicing by playing the game. This will set your building blocks solid to be the aim god that you're going to be soon. Don't set your sensitivity level too high so you cannot differentiate between enemies and friends. Just at the perfect spot for you where you can move nicely, aim nicely and enjoy the game. There are 3 areas of aim techniques to practice in Apex Legends: flick, tracking and speed. Whilst technically all the weapons in Apex Legends use a bullet projectile model, in practice they all function like hit scan weapons. If you have your crosshair over the target when you fire, you're almost always going to hit it. Hit scan weapons mean we don't need to worry about training projectile skill. Improve tracking aiming. This is a crucial one, guys. Tracking aiming is all about practicing the movement of the enemy and keeping your crosshair trained over your target as you fire your weapon. This requires precise analog control skills to make continuous, small, subtle movement. Improve speed aiming. There are 2 elements to speed training: reaction time, which is how quickly you can respond to a stimulus, and quickness, which is how fast you can physically move your analog stick whilst maintaining control and accuracy. The importance of this in Apex Legends should be obvious. You need to not only hit your opponent, but to do so before they have hit you. Training mode has a bunch of moving targets if you want to, but I would advise you to practice it in the real life King's Canyon. It's like jumping into a deep end if you like. As well as those that reward players with better damage for perfectly positioned shots. If you do decide to go in training mode, you want to spend some time snapping between targets. This means entering your aiming stance, firing at a target and exiting quickly before shifting to the next target and so on. Practicing this will help you to swiftly switch between targets, which is vital for staying alive when you encounter multiple enemy squads in a match or in close quarters. When aiming down your sight is discouraged. Another exercise that you can get up to here is practicing your aiming while strafing out of cover. Place yourself in front of an obstacle in the training ground and move yourself side to side while trying to hit a target that's positioned in the distance. This will help you hone your aim and eliminate those movements in game where you end up firing prematurely at a wall when you want to hit an enemy. Strafing out of cover. Another exercise that you can get up to here by practicing in the training mode is aiming while strafing out of cover. Place yourself in front of an obstacle and move yourself side to side while trying to hit a target that's positioned in the distance. This will help you to hone your aim and eliminate those moments in game where you end up firing prematurely at a wall when you want to hit an enemy. Recognize the recoil. Another key aspect that will affect how well you aim is you compensate for weapon recoil while aiming. In training mode, you have access to all weapons in the game, so it's worth testing them out against the sandstone walls behind the target to learn their recoil patterns. For instance, the R99 fires upwards in a relatively straight line, while the RE45 rises upwards and slightly to the right. Once you've learned these patterns, you will then be able to use either the analog stick or your mouse to draw back slightly and keep the crosshairs in roughly the same place. A good way to know if you're starting to master this is by reducing the size of the bullet's impressions you leave on the wall. Another way is to stand in the distance and aim at a faraway target while trying to control your aim. While you're doing this, try to hit as many of your shots as possible. Practice shooting while sliding down hills. The entrance of the training mode may just seem like a cool way to introduce you to the concept of sliding in Apex Legends, but it can also serve an additional purpose. Often in-game, you will be shot at while traveling down the side of a steep cliff, but stopping to aim will bring you to a total standstill, giving the opponents the edge. In these circumstances, what you'll have to do is fire without aiming down your sight. Luckily though, you can practice this in the training mode by sliding down the side of the hill and picking out different rows of targets to fire towards. If a worst case scenario does then happen in a match, at least you'll have some experience with this. Placing your crosshair efficiently. One extremely important aspect of aiming in Apex Legends is crosshair placement. When running around the map, you want to try and keep your crosshair at roughly head or neck height. Doing this will mean that you'll have to readjust your aim less whenever you encounter an enemy in order to land that devastating headshot. So it's well worth keeping this in mind while sprinting from one location to the next. Drop into hot zone for experience. One way to quickly gain experience with aiming is by dropping into hot zones, such as high tier loot areas. Should you find a weapon in time, you'll then be able to get in plenty of shooting practice at the beginning of the match. There is a bit of problem with this approach though, which is that you can often end up encountering players before you even find the weapon. A good way of avoiding this is communicating with your teammates. Keep pinging weapons as fast as you can to ensure you can find them before an enemy finds you. That's all for this video guys. I hope you guys find this informative, and if you do, make sure to like and subscribe to my channel for daily Apex Legends content.